Are you struggling to read large files from Amazon S3 without cutting off any lines? If so, you're not alone. Today, we're going to tackle how to read files chunk by chunk using the AWS Java SDK. I completely understand how frustrating it can be when you're trying to process large files, especially when you want to ensure that no lines are cut off. This is a common challenge many developers face. Here's the specific question we're addressing today. One user asked how to read a 1 GB file from S3 in 64 MB chunks without cutting any lines. They want to ensure that each chunk is complete before processing. Sound familiar? Let's dive into this. The issue arises because when you read a file in chunks, you might end up with a partial line at the end of a chunk. This can be problematic if you need complete lines for processing. Let's explore how to handle this situation effectively. And stick around. At the end of this video, I'll share a pro tip that will make your file processing even smoother. To begin addressing the user's requirement, we need to read the file from S3 in a way that ensures we do not cut any lines. First, the user should read the file in chunks, but we will implement a strategy to handle incomplete lines. Next, the user should implement a loop to read the file and store the last incomplete line. This way, if a chunk ends with an incomplete line, we can prepend it to the next chunk. Now let's look at the code implementation. The user can modify their existing code to include logic for handling the last line. This involves checking if the last character of the chunk is a new line character. Finally, after reading the last chunk, the user should check if there is any remaining incomplete line stored in the variable. If so, they can process it accordingly. Fun fact, did you know that the average person reads about 200 to 300 words per minute? That's a lot of lines to keep track of. Now, let's look at the answers provided by other users. An alternative approach to reading files from S3 chunk by chunk is to utilize the streaming functionality provided by the AWS Java SDK. You can call the getObject method to retrieve an S3 object, and then use the getObjectContent method to obtain an input stream. It's important to note that the input stream is not buffered in memory, so you should close it as soon as you're done to prevent any issues. Let's take a moment to review another user's answer. An alternative approach suggested by another user is to read the S3 object line by line using a buffered reader. This method allows you to avoid processing incomplete lines, ensuring that each chunk contains only complete lines. Now let's dive into a different answer from another user. An alternative approach suggested by a user involves reading all files in the S3 bucket while checking for specific tokens. They recommend using Java libraries, such as PDFbox, to handle PDF files effectively. The user provides a code example that initializes AWS credentials, lists objects in the bucket, and reads PDF files as text. This method ensures that only complete lines are processed. Let's take a look at another answer from another user. An alternative approach shared by a user involves using the AWS Java SDK version 2. They made updates to the original method, allowing for authorized connections and modifying the lazy holder class. This solution provides a custom input stream for S3 files, ensuring that large files can be read without size limitations. For those interested in a Scala solution, the user also recommends checking out a resource that discusses streaming large S3 objects. This could provide additional insights into handling large files efficiently. Here's the pro tip I promised. Always ensure you have a buffer for incomplete lines when processing large files. This will save you a lot of headaches down the line. And there you have it. You now know how to read large files from S3 in manageable chunks without losing any lines. If you found this video helpful, please subscribe for more tips and tricks.